Hey everybody, it's Tina. Sorry it took so long for me to get another video, but I've been sick, so still fighting it, but I had to get on and do something about Stonewall. How could we not talk about Stonewall? So basically, Stonewall were riots that happened starting on June 28, 1969 to July 3rd, 1969 at the Stonewall Inn, which was a nightclub for the LGBTQ plus community. And that's where they used to go. But history changed during that period. And so basically, what you should know about Stonewall, that it was a series of riots that were spontaneous, violent demonstrations. See, what used to happen back then is cops would raid gay bars just randomly. I mean, it was like once a month it would happen. And this particular one was once owned by the mafia, the Genovese crime family. So it was very popular in Greenwich Village in New York, in Manhattan. And it was popular because it was popular for dancing. It had a mix of cultures, mostly white, Hispanic, and African American people frequented that. And so it was popular for that because it was one of the few places where actual dancing could take place. And they used to pay the cops off. They used to pay the cops off in money packs, like weekly. And they were known as gayoles or gales. I don't know how you want to say it, but it's Gayole, gayoles. That was the payoff in order for them to continue to have these gay clubs open without incident. But it still didn't stop them. What they would do is they would break in to these bars. They would just come in, scream, yell, raid, and say, we're going to take over the place. And then they would arrest people. If you didn't have an ID, they would arrest you. If you were dressed in full drag, they would arrest you. If you were a woman and you weren't wearing at least 3 pieces of women's garments of any kind, which they would check, then they would arrest you. And then, of course, if you resisted in any way or refused to show your ID or whatever, they arrested you. So these are people that are just in there minding their own business, enjoying themselves with like-minded people, enjoying the dance floor, enjoying the music and everything. And they were getting their rights trampled on even in that instance. There used to be a method where people would come to the Stonewall and there would be a bodyguard that would look through a little peephole inside from the door and look to see if it was possibly an undercover cop. So sometimes if you were dressed in full drag, they wouldn't let you in, but most of the time they did. But basically, these were known as, what were they called? Lily Laws, Alice Blue Gown, and Betty Badge. So those were some of the things that they were known for. They were known as, in order to try to keep undercovers out. Because before the riots would actually happen, undercover agents would go in there and do reconnaissance or whatever. And they would look at people, and see that what's going on and this kind of thing. And, they would basically just take inventory so that when they actually did the actual raid, then they would have all the information they needed, so they thought. So Most of the clientele were people from their upper teens to their 30s. And like I said, it was a diverse crowd. There was a lot of homeless adolescent youth that would come from Christopher Park nearby, try to get patrons to buy them drinks. So Christopher Park nearby was very popular also with, or in relation to the Stonewall Inn. And the period immediately before June 28th, it was marked by frequent raids of local bars, including a raid at the Stonewall Inn itself, and the Tuesday before, and the closing of the Checkerboard, the Telestar, and 2 other clubs in Greenwich Village. So this wasn't, it's not like it was a sudden thing. This was something that was happening all the time to them. You know, they had no privacy, not even within their own clubs. Cops love to cover their badges and go into these bars and raid them. And they were doing it way even after Stonewall. They were doing it way before Stonewall, and then after Stonewall, they were still doing it, covering their badges and just raiding places where people were minding their own business. So at 1:20 in the morning on Saturday, June 28th, what really started the riot was a woman got pulled out, and she was being arrested against her will, and she was told that, you know, and then she was yelling at bystanders, you know, help me, help me. And finally, they just had had enough. I mean, they were just like, we're tired of being intimidated. We're tired of being harassed. We're tired of this. And they fought back. They fought back, you know, and this Stonewall is such a historic movement for the LGBTQ plus community, because it catapulted movements and organizations and publications that were in support of equal rights and for the LGBTQ community to be left alone, basically, you know. So it was a very monumental event. And they did, like I said, they didn't stop after Stonewall. In March of 1970, so that's like, what was that? Like almost a year later, Deputy Inspector Seymour Pine raided the Zodiac and 17 Barrel Street, an after-hours gay club with no liquor or occupancy licenses, such as the Snake Pit, were soon raided, and 167 people were arrested. So Stonewall was not the only one, but it was the most monumental one because people decided to finally fight back. Sad story. One person arrested during those raids, his name was Alfredo Diego Vinales. He was an Argentinian national. He was so frightened that he might get deported back to Argentina as a homosexual that he had tried to escape from the police station, and he jumped he jumped out of a 2-story window and landed on a 14-inch spiked fence. And this is to show you the kind of disregard they had for people of that community back then. It was shown on the front page of the New York's Daily News. Here's a picture. This is him right here, impaled. And this was on the front page of the newspaper the next morning. This poor guy was so scared, he jumped out of a window and landed on these and died because he was so scared. And the New York Times just decided, or the Daily News decided that it was appropriate to go ahead and put this on the front page. Sold it for 8 cents. So this poor man right here, Diego, lost his life out of fear just for trying to live his truth. It's sad. His death caused the GAA members to organize a march from Christopher Park to the 6th precinct, in which hundreds of gay men, lesbians, and liberal sympathizers peacefully confronted the TPF. They also sponsored a letter writing campaign to Mayor Lindsay, in which the Greenwich Village Democratic Party and Congressman Ed Koch, who ended up becoming the mayor at some point, sent pleas to end the raids on the gay bars. So the after effects of Stonewall continue to this day. We are still not at a place where equal rights they're still in danger, equal rights. There's politicians on both sides of the fence that say they support the community, but they don't fully support everything about the community, such as gay marriage or civil unions or whatever you want to call it. I know Biden, Clinton, Hillary, Obama have all been commented as saying that they believe marriage is a sacred union between a man and a woman. Now, although they are proponents of gay rights, there are some limitations to what they believe those gay rights are. So, or at least that is what it was. I don't know what they're saying different now, but it's an election year, so who knows. Personally, I don't go for Republican or Democratic. I'm bipartisan. I look at issues, I look at causes, I look at things that I believe in, and I look at whose platform contains those causes, and I educate myself on who's the best. So then when I vote, I just say a prayer afterwards that I voted for the lesser of the evils, because I don't care what party you believe in, they all serve a purpose, they all stand for something, and we need a bipartisan government in order to get all of our issues, desires, wants, however you want to look at it, to get them all addressed. If we had just pure Republicans, there would be, things that are left out that are very important to the grassroots and democratic society. If we had full Democrats, they would be a little too liberal with some things, and so we need that even keel. We need to be able to have it even and have people from both sides come together. That is the whole point of any movement. So if you're a part of the LGBTQ movement or whatever equal rights movement, anything that you're a part of, the whole key is you need to have differing opinions. We learn more from differing opinions than we do from people with the same opinions, because then all you're doing is just repeating and validating each other's thoughts. So it's important to have a bipartisan government. So I just want to caution you all on that. When you go to vote, don't just vote for someone who just might be for your specific cause, one cause. Look at your multiple causes. Look at everything that you believe in and make your decision from there. Don't just jump on any bandwagons because one, political person said one thing wrong and they're fighting and, mud's being slung both ways. I mean, it's just a mess. But back to Stonewall and the gay rights movement. In June 1970, gay rights activists marked the first anniversary of the Stonewall riots with a march on Central Park, which was considered the first LGBTQ pride parade, and it has been going on ever since. Now, of course, it's gotten much bigger, much grander. You have sponsors. It's just a fabulous event to celebrate diversity and inclusion and all that great stuff. So, if you're ever able, even if you're just a sympathizer, you don't have to be a member of the community. Just show your support, let them know they are loved no matter, whoever's in the community, you're loved. You're beautiful just the way you are. You don't have to prove otherwise to anybody. And anybody who tries to make you do it, they're narrow-minded, and they are always going to be that way. And it just shows that, it's like Harvey Milk said, if they know at least one person that's special to them, that's part of the community, then they will start to have differing opinions on the people in the community. Some of them will never change. I mean, that's just life. There's just some people that are so dead set in their ways and in their belief systems, no matter how retarded those may be. Excuse the use of the word. I've worked in social services and psychology for 35 years, so I use that word jokingly, but when I speak about people who are disabled, I talk as developmentally or intellectually disabled. I don't call them retarded. So anyway, there's always going to be people like that. So don't let them bring you down, because there's going to be more people supporting you. And the more we educate people on your history, on the history of our community and everything like that, the better it's going to be for everybody in the long run. And we have come such a long way with acceptance, but we still have a road to go. So the fight is not over. Not necessarily saying you have to get violent, but our community never really was violent. It was very peaceful. They were just trying to live their lives. It was people who were provoking the violence, and then finally they just got tired of it, which is understandable. One of the groups that came out was SAGE, that's SAGE, which they are the oldest and largest organization dedicated to improving the lives of LGBTQ elders. They were founded in 1978, so not too far after all the riots and everything. And they offer social and support services and advocate for the rights of older queer adults. They are also driven to uplift their clients' stories, honoring the ways they have blazed the trails for young people today, and those stories can help us better understand what life was like for queer people before Stonewall, and through the breadth of how queer culture and the LGBTQ plus rights movement was evolved in America. So I would encourage you to go to sage.com and read up, and you'll even read individual personal stories of people who were at Stonewall, who were part of the movement back in the day, who are still living their lives. They're older adults now. They like to consider themselves older queers, because they're not just gay or lesbian, but they're transgendered and they live different lifestyles, and so that's how they like to refer to themselves. So it's so interesting. And I actually have a couple of stories real quick. Charles Valentino Harris sang a queer anthem called I Was Born This Way long before Lady Gaga did. Jeremiah Norton, who is 70, made friends with Andy Warhol and Hollywood superstars. And before transitioning, Graham Davis, 63, found freedom in the lesbian bars of the West Village. Joe Caldiero, 66, learned about gay life from a West Village drag queen and witnessed the Stonewall riots from inside the bar itself. So these are people who were actually there. They are part of the movement. So it would behoove you to go to sage.com and read about the older Americans who have fought for your civil liberties today. The rights afforded to you were not just afforded to you. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into that. So we need to be grateful for our pioneers. These people I named, Harvey Milk, other people who were out there fighting. There's a ton of names. I could cite so many examples, but we don't have time for all that. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the Gay Activist Alliance, the GAA. In late December 1969, several people formed the GAA. The GAA was to be entirely focused on gay issues and be more orderly than the GLF. Their constitution started with, "We as liberated homosexual activists demand the freedom for expression of our dignity and value as human beings." I think that's a very good creed. The GAA was developed and perfected a confrontational approach called zapping. And what they would do is they would use public opportunities, I guess you could say, where politicians were speaking in public arenas, and they would zap them, with questions about gay and lesbian life and the rights, and they would just catch them off guard, basically. And they zapped so many people, and made them focus on issues that they would have much rather have avoided. So there you go. Good for the GAA. So I would also encourage you to look up the GAA and read up on them. So basically, in summary, Stonewall is a very important part of our history. Very important part. And we can never forget it. It's what started the Pride parades. We just ended Pride Month. It was the month of June. And, but like I had said in one of my tweets before, Pride isn't just a month. It's a way of life. Celebrate always. Diversity, inclusion, be proud, stand tall. Never let anybody tell you you're not worthy and you're not beautiful, because you are. You are so beautiful just the way you are. And the contributions that the community makes to our country is way beyond what many other people are giving. Our community adopts people children of different colors, takes them out of the foster system or fosters them, so same-sex couples do that, and they'll take family units, which are so hard to keep family units together, and they'll take them. They give up so much of their lives, but yet people want to lobby against them being able to get married. They want to lobby against them being able to adopt. They want to lobby against them being able to have equal rights in healthcare. But the good thing is that larger companies are becoming more inclusive, and maybe not even such large companies, but just people in general, companies in general, are starting to open up and increasing the federal law statute protection of, where they say you cannot discriminate, the Discrimination Act, where you can't discriminate against race, gender, religion, disability, things like that. Well, a lot of them are including, even though it's not mandated by federal government for the most part, they're mandating, or they're wanting, they're including that you can't discriminate on sexual orientation, gender, identification, and they are offering same-sex benefits for same-sex couples, and they're getting much more progressive. But people, we still have a way to go. There's still so much acceptance, and today's world, things are just crazy as all get out. So we need to come together, not apart. We need to come together, people of all colors, all backgrounds, all religions, everything, come together as one and show the world that we in the United States are proud Americans who love all Americans despite how they were born and the lifestyles they lead, because it's not a choice. It's not them saying, oh, I want to be harassed. I want to be raped. I want to be killed. I want to lose my job. I want to be discriminated against. Who in their right mind would do that? Nobody. So they were born this way. There is so much science that backs that up. So any of you who want to argue that, argue all you want. All that tells me is that no amount of evidence is going to convince you otherwise. But to all my people in the community, stay strong, stay proud, know you are loved, and most importantly, know your value and that you are beautiful. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. I don't care who they are. If they're your blood relatives, they will love you for who you truly are. I know it's hard. I know it's hard because so many families will throw their loved ones out and not be accepting of who their loved one is. But I'm going to tell you, there is enough support and love out there for you, separate from any blood relatives or friends who claim that they love you, but they won't accept you for who you really are. Okay? So this is Tina signing out. I hope that you all will honor Stonewall and you understand a little bit more about where it came from. The whole thing doesn't really end until July the 3rd, which is tomorrow. So let's continue to celebrate Stonewall. And thank you for watching. If you like where I'm coming from, I'm always doing videos about social causes and things like that. I talk about just all kinds of things, you know. Don't forget to subscribe, share, comment, let me know what you think. If there's anything specific you'd like me to talk about, you know, I am a clinician and a mental health clinician. I'm an activist, an ally, an advocate, a member. I'm everything. So I'm with you all. I love you all. God bless. Thank you for watching. Take good care of each other. Love y'all.